Welcome to the Blueprint for Men podcast, and today we're going to be continuing our theme on fitness. Men's health is a big deal. One of the greatest aspects of a man is a man's strength. And we've got two strong men here today that are going to be here talking about something they're passionate about, which is men's fitness in a very creative way. It's called F3. I don't know if any of you listening to this have heard of F3, but we're going to get into that. Going to get in a little bit of the personal side of these two gentlemen, but just welcome to this second interview we've actually had in person, and just appreciate you guys taking the time.
Glad to be here.
So over here, I've got David, and David Walters has been on the board of Blueprint for Men, lived in this community many years, businessman, father, husband, good guy. I've just really loved to be around David. He and his wife actually went on a trip to Israel just a couple of summers ago. Mm-hmm. My wife and I with him, and that was a great experience.
Good times.
And I think there was a little more of you at that time.
There was.
We'll get to that here. but
That's a polite way to put it.
Yeah. And so anyway, David's just a great ally in our ministry, but he's into a lot of things. And every time I get around him, I get energized. Now, to my left, AJ.
Yes, sir.
You are a new acquaintance. You live nearby in Cleveland, Tennessee.
Do.
And I'm going to start with you since I
Sure.
don't know you real well. Tell me a little bit about yourself, AJ, and then we'll get into how
Sure.
this whole F3 thing
Yeah,
works.
so I'm 40 years old, and I live in Cleveland, Tennessee, not too far away from where we are located. I'm not originally from this area. I grew up in Metro Atlanta. My wife is from Ottawa, Ringgold area. Met when I was living in Metro Atlanta, moved here in 2011, got married in 2012, and been here ever since. So this is where I raised my family. I've got 3 kids. This is where I want to be. I love this area. It's a great place to live. It's a great place to raise a family. And like I said, been here for a hot minute and have no desire to leave it.
Cool. So what kind of work do you do?
Long and the short of it is I'm in professional adult education. So I work and work with different organizations and different companies to teach adults how to do things. So corporations will hire me to get their employees up to speed on a specific process or a specific initiative, and anything from new hire orientation to technical documentation and everything in between.
Wow. Be an interesting conversation on its own. So, and David, tell us a little bit about yourself since
Sure.
a lot of these people don't know you.
Oh, absolutely. No, so I'm a financial advisor, work for myself, I actually work with my wife, Mindi, and we've been doing that for almost 27 years now, so starting to get established, I guess you could say. But,
and your boys are getting ready to launch.
Twin boys that are 17.
Wow.
And so, yeah, junior year of high school at this point, and yeah, trying to figure out what's next for them as far as education and all that. But yeah, so our life is busy, but fun and adventuresome. So, yeah.
Cool. So I'm going to go with you, David. You're the one that told me about F3.
Sure.
And what was your first initial experience? How did that come about?
Sure.
And then I'm going to bounce over here to
Sure.
you, AJ, and you can fill in all the deeper part of the story since you were part of the organization.
Absolutely. Fill in what I leave out or whatever. No. So I've been a part of F3, and F3 stands for Fitness, Fellowship, and Faith. So it's kind of an acronym there, but I've been a part of it now. Let me think. It was around this month. I think it was around March. Correct me if I'm wrong.
That's about right.
I believe it was March of 2019, so 6 years.
Pre-COVID.
Yeah, a year before COVID. I got started, and which was actually coincidentally a good time for me as well, because I was just kind of starting to get onto more of a fitness bandwagon at that time, both my wife and I. And a friend invited me on Facebook to the first kind of initial launch of the one that was going to happen here in Collegedale. And this guy was actually a part of it. He was like he kind of precedes me by a year maybe, or
Not even like 6 months.
6 months,
Yeah.
but he was kind of ahead of me, so he was a part of this initial launch thing.
Gotcha.
So I was invited out, and so I kind of went out for the first initial workout, and I was like, okay, this is kind of cool, And then a couple months after that, they officially got started. So I've been a part of it, pretty much continuously.
Yeah, absolutely.
Ever since then, and it's. And it goes deeper than that. I mean, explaining what it is. And all that.
Yeah.
I'll kind of leave it to this guy, but I've been in it for 6 years. And
So I want to, because I heard a little bit on the front end just talking before we started. Everybody, this is a funny thing, guys, those of you listening. Everybody gets a nickname.
Oh, yeah.
Yep.
At the very beginning, and it's usually something that is not flattering. Is that a fair thing to
It
say?
all depends on who's giving the nickname.
Okay.
But for the most part, yes, it's not flattering. Our major rule is that you have to be able to say it out loud at church, but you don't have to have a lovely story behind it.
Yeah, right.
No,
the
yeah.
association sometimes
Correct.
is a little bit less than
Correct.
pleasant. So, David, your nickname you
My
were
nickname was-
given. You didn't.
Oh, you don't get to pick your nickname.
In fact, if you
No.
don't like your nickname when it's being discussed, it's a guarantee you're going to get that.
That's
Yeah.
right. That's
so
right.
I mentioned I'm a financial advisor, so everybody thought it would be funny and humorous to name me Bernie after Bernie Madoff, the infamous not so financial advisor guy. So I'm forever known as Bernie.
Bernie.
In F3. I'll let him explain his own nickname.
Sure.
But let me just finish
Yeah.
up with,
Oh,
with,
yeah,
with
yeah.
you, David, because I want to ask you
Yeah.
the first time you went. Whenever you go to something the first time.
Yeah.
Who invited you?
Yeah.
How did that all happen? And what was your experience like?
Yeah.
Because if anybody's considering engaging, that's always that threshold of like, do I want to
Yeah.
really get involved in this?
Yeah. Well, it was a friend of mine, a banker friend of mine, who invited me, and he had gotten involved 6 months or a year before, and so these workouts. One of the things that's kind of infamous about them, I guess, is it's a 5:30 in the morning workout. So
Okay,
I mean,
so
it's a hard start. At 5:30.
And that's being there.
No,
Oh, yeah.
That's
No, we-
launch 5:30. You're
Yeah,
like,
so-
StartX is 5:30.
So you're getting up at what time?
Yeah, I live nearby. I get up about 5 o'clock,
Yeah,
5 a.m. or something. And I'm not naturally a morning person. I'm good in the evening, not in the morning. But anyway, hard start 5:30 to 6:15. So it's a 45-minute workout. And but the thing is, obviously after a while, you get used to it. And I average probably 2 to 3 times a week, because it goes every day of the week in multiple locations. You can kind of pick your location. So I'll
Right.
be up at 5:30 in the morning nearby, one of the locations near here. But so you get used to it. I kind of drive my wife crazy waking up a little earlier than normal on the non-workout days. But hey, listen, I have to get this stuff done early because the day only gets easier after that.
That's right. That's right.
But I was, and the initial thing is kind of like, oh man, I mean, I felt like I was beat to death afterwards, but in a good way,
Yeah.
in a way I knew I needed to be.
Right.
But you get in a little better shape as you go on, and but the thing is, there's no pushing of try to keep up or this. We say modify if necessary.
Mm-hmm.
So the older guys, the guys that aren't in as good a shape, no big deal. There's a pace for everybody
Right.
as a part of each workout, and that's something that I appreciate.
And David, this is not in a gym.
No, thanks. This
Okay.
is outdoors.
always. Rain or shine.
Rain or
shine.
shine, the only thing that'll chase us back inside, if there's active lightning in the area, we're out.
Okay.
We'll cancel it or leave a workout.
Okay.
But I mean, snow, rain, ice, summer, heat, it doesn't matter. We take pride in the fact that
Nice.
we are always out there doing what we need
No
to do.
excuses.
No,
No
excuses are not accepted. No.
We like to say you only get wet once.
Yeah.
And one of my favorite
Yeah.
workouts of all time was a guy, his exercise that he called out. He said, all right, guys, it was raining. It was pouring rain outside. His first exercise. Find a puddle and swim.
Yep. That's it.
And that was it. So just get it over with. Rip the Band-Aid off. We're all soaking wet from this point forward, so just get through it.
Enjoy it.
Endure it.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. No, that's great. That's great.
But I mean, think about this. Some of your best memories are built in, times of stress or, difficult things, or you survive a difficult
Right.
thing, or especially with friends,
Yeah.
camaraderie, teamwork, you feel like a team, and that kind of thing. That's what happens over time with this. Not that it's always some big difficult
Right.
thing, but it's something that you kind of, there's some effort involved.
Shared suffering.
Shared suffering. There's
exactly
a good
right.
word for it.
That's exactly right.
Absolutely.
But I think that is I've had a number of interviews with guys that are very much this is the story, and it's like we don't have enough of this shared suffering
Yeah.
in the world today.
Right.
We come together to watch
Live
a
in a
movie.
soft world.
Yeah, exactly. Oh, it might be a little chilly. you
Yeah.
know?
Well, in all honesty, a lot of men they miss the camaraderie that they have
Absolutely.
after high school football ends, right? Or if they were in the military after
Right.
they get out of the service, they always
Right.
talk about the people that they enjoyed spending time with and the connections they have the most are with, to David's point, the men that they suffered with.
Right.
And so there is absolutely a psychological aspect of shared suffering and building camaraderie faster.
Right.
One of the things that I love about this organization is that the goal is to kind of throw you into the blender with a bunch of other guys at the same time And then you realize, oh, they're just like me. A lot of us are in the same stage of life. It's open to anybody that's over the age of 18 and anybody until they draw their last breath. We've had guys that showed up and they've posted for the first time in their 70s.
Wow.
So it doesn't matter about age.
Right.
We do ask you to be 18 just because for a handful of different reasons. But the long and the short of it is, you've got guys that are ahead of you in their journey. They've got guys that are behind you in your journey. So you might be poured into by somebody else, but at the same time you get a chance to pour into someone else as well. And there's always someone that you can help. And so by building that kind of cohesion and building that kind of teamwork, you are able to build a network of people and a network of good friends. Without question, my best friends on this planet have all been made through this organization in the last 6 years. It's the people
So
that
let's just jump in then, because 6 years you've been involved.
Yep.
How did that start?
So I was invited by a guy that I used to work for. I had just left his organization. I was taking a job to go somewhere else, and on my farewell lunch, he takes me out, and the entire time he's on his phone, and he's looking at Slack, which is the messaging application that we use to keep back that we use to communicate with each other.
Okay.
And I'm like, JB, what are you doing? I said, oh, this is this F3 thing. I love it. And he's looking at guys making jokes with each other and posting about when the next workout's going to be. And he says, hey, you live in Cleveland. We're going to launch one on Saturday. You should show up. And at the time, I think I was, 34, 35. Thought I was in pretty decent shape. I was like, I don't know, JB. I don't know if that's for me, but whatever. I'm not a big gym guy. I never really got into gym culture, and I like team sports. That was my thing. I enjoyed playing team sports. And so, of course, at this point, I'm too old for that. I've aged out, really. And so the long and the short of it is he says, hey, you should come with me. I'm going to be in your neck of the woods on Saturday morning. This man at the time was in his early 60s. And so I'm thinking, okay, well, I'll go with you. I show up, and he proceeds to beat the daylights out of everybody.
Nice.
For 15 minutes. And after 15 minutes, I'm thinking, oh, thank heavens, this is finally finished. And then he says, all right, ladies, warm-up's over. And it just got worse. But at the end of it, at the end of that hour, and Saturdays are usually an hour long, but at the end of that hour, this was in December of 2018. At the end of that hour, I realized there was something in my life that was desperately missing. Because here's an individual he's in the twilight of his career, because he was close to retirement. He's in the twilight of his career. He's raised children. I'm just learning how to raise children. I'm just learning how to be a husband. And he's so much farther ahead of me in his stamina, in his energy, in his perseverance. And I realized that's something that I want. And so from that point forward, it was like a drug. I was hooked. I wanted to show up every time the lights were on or off. We always work out in the dark. So I wanted to be available, and I wanted to get better. And the first day that I showed up, I like to joke around. It's like an anti-hangover. It feels terrible while you're doing it, and then you feel really great afterwards.
Right.
So it's the inverse of the bad thing that we talk about. But the long and the short of it was, I learned quickly how much I was missing. And so it set me off on kind of a path and a journey of, I want to get better at not just being in better shape. I've got to be in stronger shape for my kids. I've got to, at the time I had an infant daughter, and I want to be able to pick her up and hold her like I should, and be able to play with her like I should. My son was getting older. He wanted to be more rough and tumble play, and I was getting winded and tired. And I shouldn't have been. I was too young for that. As the old saying goes, I'm much too young to feel this old. And I realized that's not one else's fault. It's mine.
Right.
And so from that point forward, it was kind of I don't want to say an obsession, but it was a very healthy drive to get stronger and get in better shape. And then over time, built some fantastic and amazing friendships and relationships.
And so what I sense about both of you guys are both gregarious. You're both extroverts. I can tell. I know David enough. He's an extrovert. And I sense that you very much are an extrovert. What about some guys that are, I'm not that group type person. Do you find that those guys that come are able to embrace that camaraderie? Because some guys are really, I don't know how to describe it, but they're just, the group thing can be a little intimidating for some guys.
It's a great question. And one of the things that we really try to pride ourselves on as an organization, this is an international organization. It started in Charlotte about 15 years ago.
Yeah, good.
So,
tell us a little bit more about that when you can.
Yeah, we can get back to it. But one of the things that the organization as a whole likes to harp on is leave no man behind, and leave no man worse than you found him. Leave a man better than you found him. So that's the entire intent. We are trying to, if you're introverted, if you are don't necessarily like being around other people, if you're not really super comfortable being around a bunch of other men, and we find guys that have that kind of background, right?
Yeah, sure.
Invariably, anytime I've ever been out, and I've posted it this time, I don't know, maybe over 600 times, you always have somebody who is willing to pull that guy aside and say, hey, here's the ropes. Here's how it works.
Right.
Welcome. We'd love to have you. And at the end of it, we almost always invite somebody out for coffee afterwards. There's a big emphasis on after we exercise and after we work out, we go get coffee and a biscuit. There's a Jack's down the street, we go get a coffee. The point is we don't want anyone to feel left out, isolated, or alone. Because nothing is more dangerous in this society right now than male loneliness.
Exactly. A lot of suicide, a lot of depression.
Without question.
And young men as well as older. I mean, both ends of the spectrum seem to be at the greatest risk. It seems like I've been hearing, guys like my age going into retirement, losing their purpose. It's like, going inward and then just like, I'm done. Or on the younger end of things, it's epidemic.
Without question it is. And so we as an organization and as a group of individuals want to keep that from happening.
Nice.
And so, yeah, great, it's a workout group. And I'm not going to lie to you, the workouts are great. They're fantastic.
Yeah.
But I'll give away some of the secret sauce. Part of the goal of this is to bring you into the workout. That's the bait. That's the catnip.
Right.
The real core of the organization is to improve men.
So that's really what you're saying is the glue.
Without question.
Is the relational building.
Yes.
And what I hear, and this is what I really like, is shared suffering, but you're having this crazy fun time. So what's your nickname?
Yeah, he's got to spill the beans.
Yeah,
So,
okay.
right.
Yeah, and how did this come about?
Yeah, so usually at the end of the first workout, how our region does it is if you post for the first time, we give you we call you an FNG, which stands for Friendly New Guy, and then we give you a nickname at the end of the workout.
Okay.
And when we do that, we bring you out into the center and we say, okay, tell us a little bit about yourself, your age, are you married, do you have kids, what do you do for a living, those kinds of things. How'd you meet your wife? Give us an embarrassing story.
Yeah.
We've actually learned to say now it's just to give us your second most embarrassing story, because sometimes the first one,
You get some doozies.
You get some, yeah, you do. You get some whoppers.
Oh man.
But when I introduced myself for the very first time, I met my wife the day before I was supposed to go to court, and it's a long story as to why I met her that way. But I was only in the area because I was there to go to the courthouse.
Gotcha.
And I met her the day before I was supposed to go to court, and I said, but I didn't do it, and so they nicknamed me and called me Wasn't Me.
Wasn't me.
So that's his name. Wasn't me.
Wasn't me.
It's a
Hey, it could be worse, right? I mean, come on.
It could be worse. It
Could be Bernie.
Well,
There's worse than that. There's some crazy ones.
again, the rule we try to stick with is make sure it's something that you can at least say at church.
Yeah.
Gotcha. That's a good boundary.
It works pretty well.
So let's go back. You were talking about how this thing started out and how it's just kind of grown over time. It started when, and it was over here in
2011, I
Charlotte.
think, wasn't it?
Yeah, 2010, 2011, somewhere in that range,
Okay.
and it started in Charlotte.
Okay.
So we jokingly refer to the Charlotte metro area as the mothership. But as the organization as a whole adopts what they call the starfish mentality.
Okay.
So a workout needs to have between 6 to 20 guys. And 20 is really about the maximum that it starts, it's to be too big because someone's going to get lost.
Yep.
Someone's going to get left behind.
Yep.
So after you routinely have 20 guys showing up, that's when we might split off and have another one start up on the same day, because there's growth and explosion by dividing.
And for those that don't know about starfish biology, if you cut a starfish in half,
You get 2 starfish.
Yeah,
That's right.
I know that. I taught biology, but I didn't know if everybody here listening knew that.
Yeah, so that's the rationale behind it. So the organization grew out of Charlotte over time, relatively quickly, and it's very, very strong in the Carolinas, and it's moved west, and it's moved north, and now it's
International
It's
now.
international. There's groups all across the UK. There's groups in Africa.
I think there's thousands of sites.
They really are.
3,000 or 4,000
Yeah.
sites across the world now that meet on a regular basis.
And what's amazing about the organization as a whole is that the culture of the org, it doesn't cost anything. It's completely free.
Yeah, this is a question I'd like to find out a little bit about is everything takes money.
Yep.
There has to be leadership. There has to be people that are devoting their life to making sure this happens. And how does that all work? Because you're in leadership in this organization, David was telling me. Is that right?
Everybody in the
Takes a turn.
organization is a leader.
Okay.
So the point of the organization as a whole, yes, we serve. We create male community leadership through the invigoration of. There's a spiel that I don't really remember all that well, which is I'm fumbling through it.
That's
but,
okay.
But the point is that we run workout groups specifically to teach leadership skills. Okay, so if you as a man can run a workout for 45 minutes with a bunch of other men, calling out exercises in cadence, planning out the exercise, making sure that nobody's left behind, there's a lot of leadership skill that's involved in that.
Gotcha.
And so that's the end goal. You don't have to lead a workout, but the intent is that eventually you will. So I would say it's free, but there actually really is a cost. We want you to run a workout eventually.
Yeah.
That is the intent.
Sure.
But as an organization, the goal is to teach men how to be better leaders. And if you can run a workout, maybe you can have a better conversation with your boss. Maybe you can better lead your family. Maybe you can better lead your household. Maybe you're more likely to play with your kids.
So really what you're saying is it's confidence building.
Without question.
Very much so.
And so the confidence building, I want to go back to the physical dimension. There's confidence because you're feeling stronger.
Sure.
More fit, so that brings confidence. Rubbing shoulders, the iron sharpening iron idea that we
Absolutely.
really are a big proponent in men's ministry is happening in a friendly way.
It is.
I mean, is the safety aspect, emotional safety, I think is one thing that guys can have bad experiences growing up where they were not athletic, they were the last one picked on the team, whatever.
Sure.
And so to engage in something that is physical, how it's like, I don't want to go back there. So this overcoming this hurdle is, I would say that's probably a fairly big confidence booster for some guys, because this doesn't require, I got to shoot it through the hoop or whatever.
Yeah, you're exactly right. Like David was saying, the goal is, doesn't matter what you can do.
Right.
You're going to be stronger today than you were the day before. And so the intent is that over time, you get stronger, you get better, you get more confident, and at the end of every workout, whoever's leading the workout has the opportunity to share whatever's on their heart. We call it the circle of trust.
Okay, cool.
And the circle of trust and the COT, as we call it colloquially, is probably my favorite thing about the organization and what we do.
And this happens when again? At
At the end of every workout.
Okay, so everybody's kind of wiped out and everybody's
Correct.
just kind of cooling
Sweating
down.
to death, and
Quite
we all
literally.
circle up.
Circle up,
Yep.
okay.
And whoever led that day gets to share whatever they want to share.
Okay.
And now it can be as simple as, hey guys, go out and have a great day today. That's not a great circle of trust. It really isn't. More accurately and more often, it's something much more profound. Someone will share a Bible verse that's on their heart. Somebody will share that they're going through a struggle in their marriage.
Yeah. Yeah.
We have heard, David, I know you can chime in on this. We've heard individuals in circles of trust share stories of their addiction and how they're overcoming addiction.
Yep.
How they have, or if they're not, which is even more valuable sometimes. Hey, I'm struggling with this.
Right.
And I'm letting y'all know. I'm asking for accountability here.
Right.
There's a vulnerability that happens in that circle that, it's not. We don't shake it because we don't share anything outside of that.
So you establish that.
Without
What's said
question.
here stays here. That's
very much
That's
so.
critical.
Which is part of the reason why we ask that nobody show up that's under 18.
Good.
Because when we bring children, or we have what we call 2.0 days. Bring your kid, and
That's a special day,
It's
though.
a special days, and those are set up on purpose, and you can bring your daughters, you can bring your sons, whatever. But if you do bring your son or you do bring your daughter, we don't share anything that's in the COT at that point.
Good.
Yeah.
Because you have guys that will share things, and that will be profound.
Yeah.
They're really asking for assistance or help,
Right.
or sometimes they're just asking for someone to listen to them.
Exactly.
And then there's follow-up during the week, actually, a lot of times. I'm on 2 or 3 different text chains with guys that are, going through some stuff, either personally or in their family. And we're just there to support each other,
Right.
As friends would. But we became friends through F3. And then to continue what he's saying, after the COT or whatever, they have, now, and we always disclose, F3 is, we say fitness, fellowship, and faith. Faith
Right.
is one of the components of it. It's not overtly Christian,
Yeah.
but most of us are Christians, believers and stuff.
Right.
And so after each workout, we'll have we huddle up, just literally just guys in a big circle, and then the leader or somebody else will just pray us out and have a prayer. And
Yeah.
after taking a few prayer requests, if there's anything that's we know somebody's dealing with, or somebody wants to say just 2 or 3, 4 different items to pray about.
Sure.
Then we'll have a prayer, an end, and then we're done. And then, like he said, if 3 or 4 of us can go grab a cup of coffee or a biscuit or something, we call that cafeteria. Kind of a funny name. We've got all kinds of ridiculous names and things that we do, but it's all part of the. It's all part of the fun.
Sounds like it's a cult.
Pretty much, yeah.
The only difference is if a cult tries to take your money, and I've tried to give people cash through this, and no one ever takes it.
Yeah.
Nobody's died yet.
No.
No Kool-Aid.
No, there's no Kool-Aid.
Okay.
No Kool-Aid at all. But
That's
but anyway, so that's kind of how a workout works. But it's got that bonding moment at the end.
A lot of trust.
Like he said, I mean, there's a million things you could do for a workout. You could work out on your own. You could go join a CrossFit class. But this is different.
There's no shortage of gyms that will take your money. I promise you.
Oh,
you can find a gym that will let you give them
sure,
some money.
But it's free, and like I said, it's the team building, camaraderie, leadership enhancing aspects of this. That's why I keep going back, because it's not replicated anywhere else.
Yeah, what I'm hearing is something that maybe, I don't know if it's ever said in your circle, but humility. Mm-hmm. I sense that there's a lot of deep level humility from the standpoint of, you get into competitive sports or going to the gym, people are, guys are, how people are. It's more like a show. It can be a show type thing, and your ego boosting. And this is more like, that doesn't play into.
We always say that F3 is open to all men, and it is male exclusive. I would make that very clear. It is,
even though it starts with an F.
That's right. That's right. It is male exclusive. There's so few spaces that exist anymore for men to be alone with each other that it's really rare. And folks get a little kind of squirrely when you start saying that. But F3 is for men alone and men only. But one of the things that we try to do is we try to make sure that if you are an ultra competitive individual and you want to make other people feel bad about where they are, this is not for you.
Exactly.
It really isn't. And we so few in the last 5-6 years, we so rarely run into an individual like that, because usually if someone tries to act or behave that way when they first show up, the rest of the organization or the rest of the group that's there that day will, enforce the social norms and be like, hey, that's not what this is. That's not what this is. You're there to build that guy up, and he's there to build you up.
Right.
There's healthy competition. Like, I'll be honest with you.
Sure.
I don't want David to beat me in a rep session. Like, I want to get there faster.
He wants to do one more push-up than me. But we'll see. We'll see how that goes.
It's healthy competition, but there's not an instance where I'm ever going to belittle him and he's not going to belittle me. If he's stronger than I am, I might be faster than he is. We're not going to belittle each other. That's just not how it works.
And another part to that is if we're in the middle of a workout, and let's just say there's a new guy who showed up who's obviously not in shape or whatever, but he's out there trying and everything. And there's one of the more fit ones among us is leading the workout, and we're jogging or something. Then that guy, he'll naturally be kind of lagging behind, huffing and puffing.
Sure.
Well, 1 or 2 of us will take the 6. Means that we'll pick up the 6. Meaning that 1 or 2 of us will stay with that guy.
Absolutely.
And not leave him behind, even though the others may have gotten ahead or whatever. And just to kind of encourage him, keep him going, whatever. And so there's a big, leave no man behind, like we've said.
But leave no man where you found him.
But leave no man where you found him.
That's a nice touch.
That's kind of how that gets dealt with.
Yep.
So. And
it's the onus is also on the leader to make sure that he never goes too far away from where whoever is lagging is. We don't want you. Sure, David might hang out with the 6, but we don't want the leader to be a quarter mile down the road either. Like, he needs to be circling back and making sure that everybody's involved. That's also part of leadership.
Yep.
Nobody wants to work for an individual who's going to leave one of his employees in the dust. Nobody wants to have a dad that abandons you and doesn't pick up and take after you and come back to make sure that you're okay. Those are the skills that are taught through something just as simple as, we're not going to leave this man behind.
Yeah. There's a code.
Without question.
Got a code.
there's definitely a code.
And it probably...
and you don't have to know it on the front end.
Right.
You pick it up as you go.
Right.
And the only real way to know it is just to experience it, show up for a workout. And we jokingly refer to it as a beat down. It's really not that bad, but...
But so much of that code that David's mentioning, I firmly believe this. It is a masculine aspect that's imprinted on our hearts by our Creator.
Absolutely.
So we know it to be true, but it's been so long since it's been scratched or developed or even encouraged and said that that's okay.
Yeah.
That's what this is.
But when you experience it, you resonate with it.
Without-
It's like
guys just naturally respond.
Of course.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And you know what's really cool about this conversation, just summarizing the first 3 months of our podcast, spiritual, mental, emotional, and physical. What I have found, this is a man's core strength, and you cannot ignore any of these. And what I'm hearing is in F3, you really are touching and scratching. You're really touching on all of these areas in a subtle way that's unconventional.
I wholeheartedly agree with you. Some of my favorite moments in F3 is when I have had someone pull me aside and be like, "Hey, you're not yourself. What's going on? You're not joking around. You're not laughing. You're not telling silly jokes. Whoever you are in the morning
Right.
isn't who you are right now. What's going on?
Right.
Let's go grab a cup of coffee, or I'll hang back and we'll do push-ups over here. Just what's going on?
Yeah.
It's so rare to get that level of check-in
Totally.
from somebody that you consider to be close friend at this point, that you don't realize how much you miss it
Right.
until you don't have it.
Right. Next month and the months following, we're going to get into our relationships. So marriage, children, and then, your social circles. The ripple effect of this core strength. Would you both say that your wives are on board with you spending this amount of time and the man that you are because of this?
Yep. For me, absolutely. I mean, that's why my wife, she knows how important this
She'll
is.
kick you out the door.
She will. Yeah. I mean, she will throw me out the door for this. This is for sure, because she knows the benefit.
Yeah,
I mean, physically, but I mean, relationship.
Yeah.
With the kids,
Yeah.
And everything. I mean, it's
Even though there's less to love.
that's true.
But David,
Working on that.
David, I want to stick with you for a second because I know that you're training for a race. Is that right?
Yes, correct.
Tell us a little bit about that, because all of this kind of is a snowball. You work on the core and your relationships, and then now I've got other opportunities that I feel like I could maybe do. Tell us about that.
Yeah. I mean, what you're referring to is I'm about 4 or 5 months into being more serious even on just losing weight and getting it even to an even higher level of shape, because this is going to sound funny, but where I'm going to be starting to train here for a paddling event, the Chattajack, which is a end of October each year. My now 75-year-old mother is in her 10th year of competing. She's a competitive female in this event.
Stand-up paddleboard.
Well, stand-up paddleboard and kayaking. So she
okay.
has a two-person racing kayak that weighs about 25 pounds, a 22-foot long kayak that I'm going to be in the back of, she'll be in the front of.
Okay.
And so I know I've really had to up my game to literally get to her level.
That's
coming
amazing.
up. So I mean, I was in okay shape before, but I'm
That's
having to push it, to get to her level.
Story. That's a great story.
But F3 is one of the ways, that and some other things I'm doing on the side. But
Sure.
that I'm showing up to more of the workouts. I'm more focused in those workouts.
Right.
So that's just one of my tools to get there.
And you're hitting a mile marker in age coming up.
Well, yeah, hitting the 5-0 this year.
5-0, and so you got to really press hard.
Yeah. Oh yeah. You got to stay respectable.
Yeah.
But speaking of respect,
How to say?
yeah, one of the things in F3 at the end, we circle up and everybody kind of says, sometimes we'll video it with a phone so we don't forget who's there, because we keep a record of who's there. But we'll say, so he'll say, say how you would say it.
Yeah, so AJ Bembry 40 wasn't me.
Wasn't me. And then we'll say, wasn't me. Kind of everybody will say that out loud. And then, so when I hit 50, I'll say my name and all that. And then they'll say, Bernie. And then respect, and then a double clap. And then if a guy in his 60s shows up,
The respect is for 50,
Marty,
and 60s is
respect. And then I do have one guy who he moved out of the area, but he showed up a couple times here. His name was Smokey because he used to work for the Forest Service.
Okay, nice.
But Smokey showed up 2 or 3 times, I think, and he was 72.
Nice.
So he was a triple respect. So we honor the guys that are in some of the more older, more respectable age brackets. So,
But make no mistake, some of our older cats will absolutely hurt you.
like the first gentleman that invited you, he'll drag you through it.
So AJ, we're pretty much out of time. I want to just ask you if you have anything, a final thing you'd like to say to guys that be listening to this, a challenge, an encouragement, whatever you like to say.
Yeah, a lot of times guys will say, you know, I don't have the time.
Yeah.
Well, you do. You choose not to make it. And
Right.
everyone works different shifts, and I'm sensitive to that. But one of the reasons why this organization meets as early in the morning as it does is because it's kind of found over time that guys have the ability to leave the house for a short period of time while the kids are still asleep.
Yep.
I mean, just let's be honest with you. A lot of those guys, a lot of us are in the same kind of stage of life. So getting out there at 5:30, you're done by 6:30. You're finished.
Yeah.
Like you're done. And we like to say, may this be the hardest thing that you've done today, because from here on out, it should be relatively straightforward, and relatively easy. I love coming back home to the house and hanging out and playing with the kids and having a cup of coffee with my wife. My wife will literally tell me after a couple of days if I haven't been, go. I need you out. Because she recognizes that, like,
Yeah.
there's something different about me when I come back. That's not me saying that.
Yeah.
That's her telling me
Well,
this.
the neurochemistry, all the
Exactly.
science is telling us, you know, and
Yep.
you're talking to this guy, okay? So how would, just search online?
Yeah, so there's been dozens of articles written about F3 as an organization. You can find articles written by Men's Health and I think Men's Journal. There's been a handful of them, but if you get on Google or your favorite search engine of choice and just search for F3 or F3 near me, you'll be able to find either the map that lets you know where the locations are meeting up around you, or you can find out more information about the actual the national group. But most of our individual regions have their own websites. So like here in Chattanooga, we have our own website, and it's f3chattanooga.org.
Cool. Yeah, I went there and scoped everything out and learned a little bit. And this has been a pleasure, guys. I really have enjoyed this interview. It's been nice being face to face, and just thank you for taking the time. And if you are in an area where there's an F3, I'm saying this to me too. We got to get out there, get after it. No excuses. I'm in my 60s, so maybe
We'll get you out there.
Maybe we'll get some respect. Anyway, until next time, thanks for tuning into this podcast, and God bless.